Hi, everyone. This is Hannah again. I am going to show you how to access Egyptology items in different museums through Wiki Commons. I am still fundraising for the Egyptology MA through the University of Manchester. So if you want to see me do more things like this, but full time, and help to support me in that, please donate to my GoFundMe campaign. And that link will be in the description box for this video as well. So this will be and has been particularly helpful to me for museums outside the United States. So museums like the Louvre and some of the museums in Germany particularly come to mind because those museums, while they do have online collection databases, most of those are not in the English language. So that's one barrier. And for many of their images, you have to download them from the site. So the Wiki Commons search is a way to sort of see what they have in their collections and get a good overview. And then if you want more particular information on the object, you can of course go to their online collection sites and find those objects. And I will put those sites, those link sites in the description box as well. So when you go to Google or whatever search engine you have, if you type in something along the lines of Egyptology or Egyptological collections by museum, that's what I typed to get this link. Or the Wiki Commons site will come up, and what will come up is category and then the term that you put in. So once you click on that, for me, this is the page that came up here. So this is, again, all the museums, at least the Wiki Commons has access to, that have Egyptology items in their collections, and they are organized alphabetically. So it starts with A over on this left side, and then if you scroll down the list, it goes all the way down to W. And so I am going to click on something like, for instance, the Museum O. I'm going to actually click on the Egyptian Antiquities in the Alexandria National Museum. That's one that's maybe not as well known to you. So when I click on that, this is what comes up for that particular museum. So these are all the images from that museum of the Egyptian artifacts that Wiki Commons has access to. So these are images that are in the public domain in some way. So I'm just going to click on a random one here. So I'm clicking on the stele, and then like I showed you for the images of the historical sites, if you want to copy and paste it, you do the same thing. So you right hand click on the copy, and then if you need to attribute the author, then this box comes up. You click on show me how, and then that gives you the author attribution that you can copy and paste. Sometimes if you click on more details, that takes you to the page for just that object, and depending on how much information Wiki Commons has access to about this object, you can scroll down. Sometimes you'll get the museum accession number, and that will help you if you go on the database if the museum has it, because then you can put that particular accession number in and that will bring that object up. So sometimes these more information also has a translation of the hieroglyphs. So that's particularly helpful for the stele, but not all the time. So now that we're on this object, I'm just going to sort of tell you a little bit about it because it does have some features that are common to a lot of these funerary stelae that we find in Egypt from the Old Kingdom on. So up here, we have what's called the offering formula. So particularly these first three hieroglyphic images here, that translates to royal offering that the king gives or offering that the king gives. And that is a common phrase that you'll find on a lot of these offering formulae from the Old Kingdom on. And then usually somewhere in here, it sort of lays out what the offerings or the types of offerings that this person or persons wish to have in the afterlife. So usually it's something along the lines of fowl, meat, beer, bread, things like that. And then down here, so where you sort of the second register where you see the images, this is the part where they personalize the stele or kind of activate it, so to speak. And so this is where you'll see usually the person who commissioned the stele, it tends to be male head of the household, so usually the husband. And so because he's the one that tends to commission these stele, he's seated at the offering table, but sometimes, as I think in this case, I don't know for sure because I there's not more details about the object, but I think this shows a family stele. So this is not just the man who commissioned this, but members of his family as well that you see scattered here that also will ideally share in the offerings. And these were set up both at the tomb chapel, so where the living came to bring the offerings of food and drink to the deceased, but then later on from the Middle Kingdom on, you have Abydos become a place of pilgrimage, and there's offering stelae and funerary chapels that are set up there as well. So you didn't necessarily have to be buried at Abydos to have a funerary stele there. So again, you just sort of scroll through and you sort of get an idea of what these different museums have in their collections. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to find the Louvre because that is, again, one of the more well-known. So I just have to get to L. So I'm clicking on the Louvre. And for the larger museums, so for the Louvre and the British Museum, which is on here as well, the Wiki Commons then divide these pages further by object class. So not just Egyptian objects, but subcategories within that. So if I click on ancient Egyptian sculptures in the Louvre, then I scroll down, and these are all the sculptures that are in the Creative Commons license that the Louvre has. So again, I scroll down, and this just again gives you a good idea of the types of objects that the Louvre has. So I'm just going to sort of click on one random here. And so this is a female head. So I'm just going to click on more details just to see if it gives us the accession number, because again, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. If they do, that's helpful for if you want to find that particular object on the collection database. And unfortunately here, I don't see the accession number. So for me, and in terms of gender, the object class that gives us a lot of information is those stele lays, so those funerary stele lays. So from those, we tend to get a lot of women's names and some of their job titles as well. As I said, a good chunk of these stelae that we have were made for or commissioned by a male head of a household. but we do find some stele that was commissioned by a woman. And so she's the biggest figure. She's the focus of the piece because she's the one who paid for it. Also from the Old Kingdom on, particularly from Giza and the royal family, we have female stele that are just devoted to female members of the royal family, and because of their royal status, they don't have that shared stele with male members of the royal family. So I'm just going to go down here. So again, this is the main page, because what I'm trying to find is ancient Egyptian steles in the Louvre, so that subcategory. So first, it gives you this sort of way to search through these things. So you can either click on these particular stele, or you can scroll down and it gives you the picture images here. So I'm just gonna click again on one of these random stele, and this, even without clicking in the more details, it gives you a little bit more information about the piece. And so this is a stele that was made in the course of the Apis bull call. So it was a stele that was commissioned by the king who was in power at that time, which I think that, yeah, so that's the king here, because this is basically the hieroglyphs that translate to king of upper and king of upper lower Egypt, and then we have his name and the cartouche here, and then the hieroglyphs that translate to I think the good God, and then Lord of the two lands, and then the king himself here. So that one doesn't give us a lot of info about gender. So this is a better one. So this is not necessarily a funerary stele, but I think from what I can tell, it's just a regular family. So the male head of household, and then maybe his two sons or adolescents, and they're worshiping, I think, a deity here. So that's where that came from. So again, if you just scroll down, you get sort of a sense of just what they have in their collection. So this is an example of a funerary stele. So this is the gentleman who commissioned the piece. So we have him here in front of the offering table. And I don't know for sure, but within sort of this piece of text, or maybe here, his family may be mentioned as well. But in the very least, somewhere in here, his name will be stated. And the MFA has a good amount of these offering stele as well. So this, again, is one of these offering stele, but this is more of a family style one as well. So you have the husband and then possibly the wife there. Again, without getting a really close look at the hieroglyphs, I can't know for sure. And then those may be some of their children. So here we have another funerary offering stele. So again, we have the person who commissioned it, and then he is in front of the offering table here. So again, these these funerary stelae are one of the main ways that we get at the lives of women in ancient Egypt. So this is another one where we have possibly the husband here, and this is possibly his wife with maybe another female kin member that are bringing him offerings to sustain his spirit in the next world. So this also doing it this way allows you to find hidden little gems. So maybe access the not necessarily the elite members of Egyptian society, but these steles that were sort of made, or objects that were made for the lower class, because these images in the public domain cover both objects that are in view, but also objects that are still in storage and aren't currently on view. And of course, for museums, sort of their common thing is to not only, but to favor more putting the more sort of pretty and polished things on display. So doing the object searches this way, you might find instances or sort of see women of lower socioeconomic status that are peeking through. So this again is just one of the really cool ways that you can find a lot of these different objects. And like I said, most of the major museums are on here. So we have the Louvre, but then we also have British Museum. So I'm just going to get to B here. So this is the British Museum. And it doesn't have objects necessarily by object class, but it has objects by room. And we have a puppy, and she just got a piece of paper, so that's what I'm bending down on here. Hi. And so this guide up here tells you how the rooms are sorted out. So room 4 is where they put their Egyptian sculpture. Room 64 is for Egypt, and so on. But they also have museums like the MFA in Boston. So that's what I'm going to go to now here. Do kind of have to sometimes go back and forth. Oh, probably because Boston, that might be under B. Yeah, so sorry, that was under B because it's Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and Boston is last. So this again has some of these categories that it breaks down into. So if you want to see particularly sarcophagi, statues, or different architecture, you can do that as well, or you can just do it that way. So if I click on architecture, sometimes that has further subcategories, so then you can click on these as well, or just sort of go down. So again, this is just a really good way to get at some of the objects that these different museums have. So I'm going to end the video. Hopefully you guys find this info helpful, and I'm doing a live object talk on the 4th August, so join me on Facebook for that. And again, if you want to contribute to furthering my education and really allowing me to do this full time, that would be um, cool, and that would definitely be amazing. But either way, I hope you find this in the info from this particular video helpful.